Yeah, let's give them a hand as they come on up. So thanks for coming out, guys. Again,
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just to remind you, the main reason we do these films is to our audience to learn how to make their own films and get inspired to do so. And the best way to do it is to hear from people who've been there and done that. So you first maybe want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Dan. I directed the movie. Thank you.
I'm Andrew. I co-wrote it with Dan.
And I'm Brad, one of the producers of the film.
So as we all know, it takes a village, an army, whatever metaphor you want to use to make a film happen. So any cast and crew in the audience?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of people here. John is here, who played Ben in the movie. Justin, who played Jed, is back there. Teresa, who plays Annie's mom, is right here. Who else is here? Oh yeah, Huntington's here. He plays Max, the bartender. Mike, who's one of the other producers, is back there in the back. Paul, who's one of the other producers, is back there in the back. I'm missing some people, aren't I? Who am I missing?
It's okay. You can raise your hand. Anybody else?
Cody.
Cody.
How could I forget? Cody, who was our AD / script soup / driver / everything. Yeah, he was a godsend on the movie. I apologize if there's someone else. I feel like there is, but I can't. I don't know. Maybe they came in late.
Cool. Cody, I hope you got top billing over there.
Top billing.
So it always starts with the script and story because you can't make a film without that. So do you guys want to talk about how the story came to be and how it got into paper form?
Yeah. So it was an idea that I'd had for a while. Basically, it was just I'm from North Carolina originally. I wanted to make a movie in North Carolina. I knew I could make a movie for no money there because I could get stuff for free. And I like horror movies, so I wanted to make some kind of monster movie, but I didn't want it to just be a straightforward B monster movie. And then when I was researching kind of North Carolina mythology and some things that I could do, I actually just stumbled upon a surprising Bigfoot history that you wouldn't know that's there, but apparently it is. And I started researching it and sort of fell in love with it, and that was where the idea came. And then
Yeah, so Dan and I worked together at The Soup, a hit show on E.
It's all good. Plugged.
Thank you. So Dan was his idea, and I believe you how did we do this?
I'd already written. There was another version of it earlier, like 2011, maybe even earlier than that. That was the Ben character going home to North Carolina, and he meets a girl who ends up being a Bigfoot hunter, and it reeked a little too much of I don't know, it was too much like Garden State or something. It was just too much like typical, so we sort of decided to switch it, and then I wrote a draft, and then
so Dan wrote draft, and I think I wrote draft, and then he would go back and change stuff or whatever. I don't remember exactly, I can't remember.
Andrew's a lot funnier than I am, so a lot of the funny stuff, that was kind of what it was. I was like, I want to punch up the comedy a lot, so that's why I wanted him to be part of it. So most of the
I guess
lines that get bigger laughs, they're all his.
Yeah, if you laughed, I wrote it. If you didn't, Dan did.
Exactly.
Fair, clear line of distinction right there.
I'm okay with that.
That's, I think, how the union, parses out. Talk a little bit about that process, though, because was it a thing where it's emails back and forth? You guys obviously work together, so was it after work just cranking it out for a couple hours?
We share an office. Did we share an office at the time?
I don't know, but currently, we
share an office.
We sit 3 feet from each other.
I think it was we didn't work on it during company time.
Of course not. No.
Our boss is back there, so. I did not print out scripts at work.
I think Dan would write stuff and send it to me, and then we would do a lot through email, and we meet after work, and I think that's just pretty much we did. It didn't. I feel like it went fairly quick.
Yeah, I mean, it was never as official as I'm hiring you to we're buddies, and so we were hey, let's work on this together. So there was never, there wasn't a very clear delineation on.
What was the time frame around that? Was it 3 months? 6 months?
The whole
longer?
thing, oh God, I don't know.
I mean, I started working on it in 2011. And we shot in October of 2012, so over
I guess
over a year
there probably 3 or 4 drafts. So maybe the last draft was just small changes. When I was involved, maybe you did numerous drafts alone.
3 or 4 drafts deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he had the foundation. He just needed the funny. There's
Yeah, I mean, it's not
three
like
drafts to get the
right.
funny.
No, it's like it's a mix of genres, and we all kind of brought pieces of ourselves to it, and in the end, Dan fleshed it out and made it what it is, which is great. And it's yeah. I mean, I'm proud of you, buddy. I'm impressed.
Aw.
I'm impressed
Thanks,
and
buddy.
proud.
It's kind of like
Andrew's one of
my
office
oldest
love
friends.
going.
I know. Yeah.
Then when did you guys kind of know, okay, we got a script that we're ready to move into pre-production and kind of get some feet and legs under it, move on, kind of that, and then kind of how did that process begin to happen?
I don't know about I don't know. I guess you never really know when it's exactly ready. But for me, it was more just in the beginning of 2012, I was about to turn 30, and I was like, fuck, I have to make a movie regardless of if anyone's gonna give me any money. So I just was like, well, I can make this movie. This can happen for no money. So I told myself at the beginning of the year, I was like, all right, in the fall, I'm just gonna do it. And and then we tried to wrangle up a little bit of money, but not quite. But yeah, so
It happened, so we still made it work, though.
And then I don't remember exactly when.
It had to be
how you
August
came
or
on board.
September we met.
Yeah.
And then, because I know you said you wanted to shoot in October, and I was like, you're like, here's the budgets. Can we make this happen? And I remember saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's make it happen.
Sorry, we got a phone distraction over here. We'll keep going. Did you guys kind of talk about your relationship? Did you guys, how did you guys know each other? How did you guys kind of get looped
Mutual
in?
friend actually that I used to work with. She kind of introduced us. Like she showed me. She always talked about Dan and showed me some of his work, and I instantly fell in love with it. And then I think you were looking for a producer type to kind of jump on board and kind of spearhead things. And she was like, "Hey, you should meet Dan. Get an introduction going." And that's kind of
And I had made a short that was clown,
Yes,
dark
yes.
clown centric.
Loved it.
And
Loved it.
You were working on a web series that was dark clown centric.
Yeah. So that's how the connection kind of.
So you bonded over clowns.
Exactly, as most people do.
Yeah,
As you
first
do.
first time.
Yeah.
that we've- so then, what was the process after that? Once you were okay, we got a script, we got some producers on board. Did you build out more producer team? Did you start getting department heads? Kind of talk about that process.
Sort of. I mean, it's a tiny movie.
Yeah.
There, in terms of department heads, there really weren't very many. I met my DP. He lives in New York, and we had some mutual friends through where he went to film school, which is in North Carolina, and they recommended him. I met up with him one time when I was just home for a vacation, and we hit it off. And then he built out the camera team and everybody in that regard. And then in terms of producers, it was really Brad, Mike, and myself, pretty much. In terms of the core 3 people putting together most stuff in pre-production, and then. We didn't have. There is no costume person. There is no wardrobe person. There's a makeup effects person clearly because But yeah, there weren't a lot of department heads. You're kind of looking at the department heads.
So, which is great because then on a independent film, when there isn't the traditional department heads, how do you guys divvy up the work? Because the work still has to get done. So when you're like, okay, who covers what? When you have maybe 3 people, and how do you guys kind of figure that out?
Brad was a godsend in the sense that Brad stayed here in California, but Brad did all the work, all the paperwork, all the everything, all the fun,
permits,
exciting,
insurance,
glamorous work.
Agreements.
But it was a godsend because that's the kind of stuff I know how to do some of it, but not a lot of it, and I didn't want to do it. So it was really awesome to have someone who who could actually take care of that and who I trusted to take care of that. And then I don't know. In North Carolina we were all sort of, everyone was pitching in a lot of different ways. It wasn't like this is your job, so this is the only thing you do. Everyone kind of just pitched in and did what needed to get done.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about how I think that's a perfect example of Brad, you had experience with the paperwork and you're able to handle that because sometimes a lot of people in the smaller budgets who are writers, directors, producers take on things that maybe they don't have the experience on and then mess up or do something that hurts the film later. How important is to work to the strengths of whoever's on the team? Can you talk a little bit about that, maybe, Brad?
Yeah, definitely. Always working with someone who knows the paperwork is always a godsend, and it's a blessing in disguise because there's a lot to do, and people who do with creative should not be dealing with the paperwork just because there's so much to do in regards to the permits, the insurance, dealing with SAG, all those types of things. So finding someone or learning a little bit about it beforehand is very valuable. Again, I would try and find someone who knows that line of the world, basically, that production side of things. So.
And our line producer in North Carolina, who was a local hire, she was really great. And working between her and Brad, like I pretty much never had to worry about any of that stuff, which was awesome. Yeah.
We'll move a little bit into casting. Did you write for anybody you guys knew, or did you cast it all?
I mean, I kind of wrote it for John in a lot of ways. Like I'd worked with John. He's been in a couple shorts of mine, and we're friends. And when I was writing it, I was always like, John. It'll probably be John. Like it was always like in the back of my head that it'll probably be John. And then Tara, who's the lead actress, she's a friend of mine too, who's an actress who I knew. So I didn't write it for her, but like when we started thinking about it, I was like, oh, Tara would be great for this. And Justin came through casting and was great. And was the best. And Jeremy, the other actor who plays Paul, he's a North Carolina actor, and he actually just auditioned through a YouTube video. I actually didn't meet him until he showed up on set. We just like Skyped together a few times, but it ended up paying off because he's awesome. Yeah. But so.
For the actors in the room, advice on your side of the table. What the actors who got cast, was there things that they brought at the table that made it unique to the character? Kind of how was that process for you? That helped you? Was it a tough decision?
I was talking with John about this question a little bit to try to figure out what the best. I mean, in terms of Justin, since he's here and since he's the one who like came through just like cold casting. I mean, Justin came in with a lot of like Jed's character. I mean, he's the comic relief. I mean, that's kind of clear. But like, I like to think that he's more than that, and that you bring something a little more serious to the role. And Justin was was the only one who really did that and wasn't just like, I'm gonna be the dumb redneck and I'm gonna goof off. Like the one who actually was like, okay, this guy actually has the chops to bring some more to the character than just being like the goofball. And I mean, I think that's really important, especially for actors who might go out for those type of roles, of being like, oh, well, you end up getting typecast in that role a lot. But it's great if you're capable of, pushing beyond that.
Great. Let's get a little more into production. Obviously, you shot in North Carolina. Was it? How did you set that up? Is it all places you knew of some being there? Did you have to kind of how was scouting? Talk a little bit about locations.
When I was working on the script, I sort of stumbled upon the Uwharrie National Forest, which is where most of the movie's shot, and they actually have a legitimate Bigfoot history there. There's a lot of sightings, and there's a lot of people down there who are hardcore believers, and people with pickup trucks that have Bigfoot stickers on them and stuff. I know like Finding Bigfoot shot an episode down there, and I met with the woman from the Chamber of Commerce down there, and she took me out into the woods and with the guy who owns the shop that they go to, and they basically just showed me the area, and a lot of the stuff that ended up being in the movie was because they showed it to me, and they were like, you could shoot here, and I was like, yeah, I could. And so and they were really amazing and supportive. So a lot of the stuff came just through talking with them. I mean, like the first week of shooting, everybody stayed at my parents' house. And, like the bar that they are at is a bar that I go to when I'm back home. And so, yeah, all stuff that, like out here in LA, you ask a bar owner, can I use your bar for the night to shoot a movie? And they say, sure, $20,000. But
literally.
Back there, that guy who I'd never met handed me the keys and said, lock up when you're done. So, like that's a good example of, the benefit of that. But yeah, I mean, that's how we found a lot of the locations. I mean, most of the movie takes place in the woods, so like 90% of the movie, we stayed at this one cabin. The whole cast and crew stayed at this cabin together. And 90% of the movie is just you point that direction from the cabin, and then you point that direction, and then you point that direction, because, woods look like woods.
It was I wasn't there, but it was a very small area you actually shot in, right? Like
yeah, I mean, most of the movie takes place within like 100 square feet of each other. Like, you're just, like point that direction for this scene, point that direction for this scene.
How many days did you guys shoot?
It was an 18-day
Yeah.
shoot. It was 17 days and then a backup day for things that didn't work.
Which is a good size for an independent film. Like that's a lot of days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really grateful that people were everybody was like willing to take the time off from their real lives to go hang out in the woods for 3 weeks. But yeah.
Can you so we saw the final product, but we always know there's hiccups, things that you don't plan for, that you have to figure out. Producers are called basically glorified improv artists. So can you talk about some of the behind the scenes where like, oh, that stopped raining for 5 minutes to get this shot, or we had to change some plans?
Yeah, I mean, A good amount of it, we got pretty lucky. Like, it didn't rain at all. It rained like one night when we were shooting inside, so we didn't lose anything to rain, which is the most common thing. I mean, the funny story I always tell is about there's 3 audio mixers credited in the movie, because on the 4th day of shooting, the first audio mixer showed up complaining of like stomach cramps. And he was like, I've been up all night throwing up. We assumed he had food poisoning, but and we assumed we were all going to get it. But throughout the course of the day, luckily it was just a scene where he just had to sit there. He didn't have to move around or carry equipment anywhere. But by the end of the day, he was in really, really bad shape. And somebody was like, sounds like appendicitis. So he got home to his parents. He was staying at his parents' house. And then his dad like immediately took him to the doctor, and he got his appendix out that night, and it had burst sometime in the afternoon while we were shooting. So he was he was in bad shape, but he's fine now. So, and to his credit, one, the sound is perfect. There's no problems there. 2, he got us a backup guy for the next day, so that then we could arrange to fly down
Somebody
another
else,
guy to do the 2 weeks in the woods. But that's all. That's like I'd say that's probably the best production snafu story that we have.
Yeah. That's the best one. That and
You probably heard. Yeah.
I remember getting that call. I was like, oh, okay, great. Let's fly this guy down. And then the other thing's probably the tires on those cars kept.
Oh yeah, like we're out in the woods, and it's all to get to the cabin. It's not the worst dirt road in the world, but pretty bad. And I mean, everybody every day the line
there's
producer was
always
going to Walmart to get new tires put on
Another
all the cars.
patch.
Yeah, we spent a lot of extra money on fixing tires.
Yeah.
That's the first time I've heard tires being like a line item budget. That's
be
the
shocked.
break show.
You guys spent a lot of money on tires.
Talk a little bit about the process then into a little bit of post wrapping up. Kind of, how did you set yourself up in pre-production and production, if at all? Some people say that we do X, Y, and Z, or we didn't do anything at all. And
I mean, with shorts and stuff, I've always just cut them myself. For this, I thought about maybe cutting it myself, but I always kind of thought I'll probably get an actual editor and get someone a fresh set of eyes on it. So, I mean, I'd like to think that I adequately prepared her for what she faced, but I don't know. She'd have to answer that whether or not I did. But
was there
she's not.
was there any communication beforehand? Did she see any footage
No,
while you were shooting, or was it all
because
done?
we didn't hire an editor till post. And if if you can afford to do that, if you know the person you're going to have do that, I mean, if they can be there with you, that'd be amazing. But I don't know if they can. They can't always be there. So we didn't have anyone specific in mind until afterwards. So she came in kind of cold to everything. But I like to think that I organized it well enough for her.
I got no complaints.
Talk a little bit about that process. How long did post take for you guys? Was it all done here?
Yeah, it was all done in LA, except for some of the like music composition stuff. But it was all done in LA, and I mean, it wasn't one of those situations where it was like, you have 4 weeks to cut the movie, and this is your rate, and you're getting paid per week, and you do. It was kind of like, this is what I'm going to pay you. Go edit it, and we'll get together and we'll talk about it and stuff. So I mean, it was kind of fluid. There wasn't a deadline so much.
No, I mean we had an idea of schedule as to like when we wanted to see cuts and all that, but yeah, like with that, you can't have someone just like work for 4 straight weeks and have them plow through it. You gotta kind of break it up. So
kind of how was the total time frame in that kind of ebb and flow?
I mean, 6 months maybe.
Yeah.
And I mean, in the sense that a lot of stuff keeps kind of going. I'm actually probably meeting with my audio guy on Saturday to do there's 4 little cues that I want him to fix. So I'm hopefully meeting with him on Saturday to fix.
It never
those
ends.
things. Yeah.
It never ends.
Yeah, no, it never ends.
And so then did you guys have talk a little bit about like submitting to film festivals? I saw that you guys had to raise money for post. That was separate. Kind of talk about.
Yeah, we did a Kickstarter for post. And I mean, that was amazing. That was really valuable. I have a bit of like a love-hate relationship with Kickstarter. So for me, it was really, I was like, I don't want to use it before there's something to show for it. So I figured, I'll do it for post, because by that point I can say, I'm not just some dude saying, give me money to go dick around in the woods, here's a movie, and it will be a movie eventually, but I just need that final kick to get it finished. So that was really awesome. And yeah, I mean, festival wise, we ended up having a really nice festival run. A lot of Southern film festivals supported us. A lot of the mid-level Southern film festivals, which if you're filmmakers, don't sleep on those, because everybody thinks oh, I hope I get into Sundance, but you're probably not going to get into Sundance. So sorry, but so yeah, I mean, so I don't know. For us, I mean, I would have loved it if that had happened, but it didn't. So, but we ended up having a really great run with a lot of people who, especially in that Southern circuit, seemed to really support the movie and really get what it was doing. So,
But I hear that you found an audience in the Southern community. You shot it there, and so you recognize that audience, and you wanted to make sure that you tapped into that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm hoping, I'd like it to be considered a Southern movie, and I hope that it is. So yeah, I mean, it's sort of a shoo-in that audience should be into it, and luckily they were.
Talk a little bit more Kickstarter, because I think you tapped on something that's important. A lot of people do just kind of throw a campaign up without thinking kind of through the process a lot of times, in the process of we're going to do all of this work to prove to you guys that there's something here to worth investing into.
Yeah, I mean, that's maybe just me, but yeah, I kind of feel like, if you're gonna barrage everybody with, constant updates about, give me money to make something, you better make something, and we've all probably given to Kickstarters where you give and then nothing ever happens with the thing, and you're like, well, all right, that was, but so I'm just more of the opinion, if you're gonna say you're gonna do it, you better do it. So it's easier to do that if you've already shot the movie, and then you say, I have the movie, I'm ready to do it, I just need to finish it.
And then talk a little bit about distribution, kind of that process for you guys. What was that like? 'Cause some people will make a film and have that experience with that, and some people don't, and it's a whole different ballgame.
It's still ongoing right now, so I probably and
Say
since
what
this
you
is being
can and
filmed,
not
I probably can't be
specifics.
completely honest about it all. What does Mike? He says be honest? No. Well, the ink isn't dry. I can't say anything. All right, he's telling
you got the
I'm
sign
not
approval
I'm not
over
going to
here.
listen to him. But no, I mean I'm not naive to it. I know that it's a slow process, and I know that it's especially for a tiny movie, with with no movie stars in it. I mean, I get that, and it's not really a horror movie. It's not really a drama. It's somewhere in between, which I get that that makes it hard for people to figure out what to do with it. But I mean, it's going slower than I would like, but it is going. Yeah. So that's better than nothing happening.
Of what you can talk about, just the process for people, okay, if you get a film that people are interested in distribution, these are things that you need to be mindful of for a first time or something.
I mean, I would say vet your sales agents well, really look at their library and what they have. And I mean, with a movie of this level, it's not like Lionsgate is knocking down the door to take it, but the smaller companies, you can still sort of tell, which company, this company has a bunch of movies I've never heard of, or, maybe I've heard of one or two, and then you can always, look on Netflix and see if any of them has shown up there. But, I mean, I'm learning, this is the first time I've ever done this, so I'm learning how it all works and, figuring out the process. But, yeah, I mean, sales agents are big. Our thing was we wanted to get to the Cannes film market, and that's how we ended up with our sales agents, because it was a couple weeks out, and they said we'll take it to the market. So and yeah, all that stuff's sort of slowly happening. I'd say just don't get ahead of yourself. Don't be like, oh, my movie's gonna be in theater in 100 theaters in 3 weeks. It's like, no, it's been a couple years, and we're still locking down the VOD and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, and with Netflix and all those things, VOD is a huge
avenue. I mean, that's the other thing.
for
With a movie of this level, I mean, I think it's sort of unrealistic to even assume that your movie's going to play in a bunch of movie theaters. So, luckily nowadays, I mean, VOD is just as good, if not better, in a lot of ways. So, that's sort of what you want to aim for.
Great. We always like to wrap up with kind of like a nugget of advice for the first-timers out there, whether it be a first-time director, writer, producer. If you were to kind of sum it up to go, as you start this feature film making process, be mindful of this. And we'll start with you, Brad. We'll start with the producer, and then we'll work our way this way.
My word of advice would be build a solid team to back you up, and always listen to your director and fight hard for his vision as best you can. Sometimes there might be some backlash between you two, but always try to fight for the vision.
I guess I would say if you're gonna write with someone, or if you're not gonna direct it, give it to someone who you know is really gonna go and bust his ass and do it. And that's like Dan was so passionate about this. Like, this is something that's definitely going to happen, whether anyone saw it or not. He was going to make this film. So, I mean, because you can just write stuff and never actually finish it, and just it sits on your hard drive forever. I mean, I have tons of stuff like that. But I knew this was something Dan was going to go make. So there's going to be a product, which was, it's inspiring. Good work.
Thank you. I don't know if I have like a good or profound answer, but because I mean, a lot of people say like, just go out and do it, and that's like I agree with that, but at the same time, like, make sure you know what you're getting into, and make sure that don't we tried to write this, and we were like, okay, this is something that is accomplishable. Like if it was a much bigger movie, if we had a lot more money, there'd obviously be a lot more stuff happening. But like we wanted to be like, what's a story we can tell within the amount of money we have, and I think that's important to kind of. This sounds negative, but like know your limitations. Know like what is unrealistic and what but do like just a little bit beyond what's realistic. You always want to push it a little bit, but don't try to make a $100 million movie when you only have $100.
I don't think that's negative. I think that's wise. So that's super smart. So let's give him a hand. Say thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks so
Thank
much
you
for
for
coming.
coming.
Appreciate it.